Hi, I'm Rajiv, and before I move into this little video, this little movie, whatever you want to call it, I want to make a point that I'm trying very hard to look into the camera at the top of the computer. So if I seem as if I'm not looking at you, the audience, then you have to forgive me and understand that I'm not used to sitting like this and looking at the camera, but that's what it is. What is a photograph? And that's the subject of a series of videos that I intend to make. How do you define a photograph? A photograph is very simply an image created by light on a light sensitive substrate. And that's the sum and substance of it. Light enters a camera lens, it forms an image on the digital sensor or film, which you then later process. And that's all that there is to a photograph. But if that is the case, then why does every photograph look different? And how do you define a photograph? What is reality these days? In the old days, we all believed that a photograph was supposed to depict reality. I would say that in today's world, a photograph depicts your reality. And there is a fine line now between photographs and digital art. So I'm going to take you through a few images of a church that I shot in the Fatehpuri area of Delhi. We call it Old Delhi. I have no clue why we call it Old Delhi, but we do. Anyway, so this is in the area called Fatehpuri in the walled city of Delhi. The walled city of Delhi is the 7th of the cities of Delhi. The Mughal Emperor Shah Jahan built this in the 17th century, and he called it Shah Jahanabad. That was supposed to be his capital. After the Mughal Empire imploded, or as it imploded and the British began to gain more control, they put up, British structures in this area of Delhi. So this is an old church. It's roughly 150 or 160 years old. I forget the name of the church, but this is the original photograph without any editing at all. Nothing. It's an ugly photograph. One reason why it's ugly is because of all the wires that you see in front of the church. The other part, of course, the other aspect which makes this a bit ugly is that I could not get a good angle. The roads are narrow, and when you shoot up, then you are left with what you are left with. So here you have this very ugly image, and the front of the church itself is a nice graceful building, but all these ugly wires and these ugly electrical posts cover the front. And what do you do about it? If I were to submit this to a very strict publication which does not allow anything but a slight adjustment of the color, then this is what I would submit. It's not artistic in any way. Nothing about this is artistic. So for the purpose of this video, I decided to make a few changes. I did not make any changes to the colors, no burning, no dodging, nothing. So the first step, and it wasn't a perfect execution because I didn't want to spend 10 hours trying to remove everything, but in the first step, I removed the wires. I'm going to go back to the previous slide for a moment, and I want you to pay attention very carefully. You'll see the lettering at the bottom left, that's gone. You'll also see a bit of marble inlay which has gone. The reason why it's gone is because at some point I got a bit fed up of removing the wires, and what you have is an imperfect depiction of the original image. You will see on the roof of the edge of the roof of the church a little bit of the church seems to be jutting out, and that's obviously not good editing, but it doesn't matter. It serves the purpose. I use Photoshop for this, and I used 3 tools. The one tool was the spot removal tool. The second tool that I use is the remove tool, which uses a bit of AI. In fact, they all use AI nowadays. And in the third, I use a generative fill. And in this generative fill, I did not put any prompt. So Photoshop analyzed the image and then decided to fill in what it thought was best. So once again, go back, look at the circular window in this image. Look at the circular window. Look at the circular window again. Go back again. And here you have it. Now, if you were to see this image without having the previous image for comparison, then you would assume that this is how the circular window looks, but that's not the case. Once again, the original circular window, and number 2, the modified circular window. It's changed. There are a few other problems in this image, which I will point out by and by. So for instance, in that little structure on the top, a small amount of the metal is missing. If you go back here, I could have used the clone tool to fill in the gaps, but I didn't. I assume that the metal is all white. Now let's move on. There is another tool called Lumina Neo, and it functions both as an independent bit of software as well as a plugin to Photoshop. And what did I do? I changed the clouds. Voila! You would never imagine that on this particular day you actually had a dull, hazy sky. If you were to just see this image, you would say, okay, beautiful, nice blue skies, wonderful day, wonderful weather. So obviously, this is a lie. But you might call it photographic art, you might call it a depiction of your reality. You might even say that this is how you want to represent the church. And now let's move to the next step. Here I created selections in the sky, and I used the generative fill tool within Photoshop to add birds to the sky. So as you see, let's go back again. The original, step 1, step 2, step 3. Progressively, I have altered the image so that it looks almost nothing like the original image. What is reality then? Here you have them all for comparison. The one on the top left is the original, top right, after I've removed the wires in a clumsy manner. Bottom left, after I've changed the sky. And bottom right, after I have added the birds. What is reality then? What is a photograph and what is a real photograph? Now, people have manipulated images from the beginning, right from the beginning of photography, and I will talk about this in future videos addressing the topic of what is a photograph. Now, they have, in the old analog days, most people they manipulated, if you want to say, the look of the image by changing the chemicals they used in the processing or the base material. So if you use metal as a base material, or if you use paper, or if you use glass, the image looks different. the chemicals that you use will cause or create an overall hue, which is why in the old days of analog in the 19th century, you had daguerreotypes, you had calotypes, you had cyanotypes, you had ambrotypes, palladium prints, platinum prints, all sorts of prints, and they all look different. But I don't think that the old photographers went around changing or removing objects. That's a gift modern digital technology has given us. So digital technologies have made photo manipulation much easier. Removing objects like I've done is much easier. AI technologies push the boundaries much further. AI technologies push the boundaries much further, and the question that you need to ask yourself is, when does a photograph transition from being a photograph to digital art? I don't have the answer to this. I don't think anybody has the answer to this. It depends very much on you, what are your boundaries, and also it depends very much on how you want to portray yourself. Are you willing to be honest about this and say, hey guys, I have done this, or hey guys, I have not done this, and you know what, I changed the skies, I removed the wires, I added birds. Will you be honest enough to say that? But if you are going to say that this is a depiction of reality, after you have removed wires, after you have changed the clouds, after you have added birds, if you then say that this is reality, then you are lying. So when you do this, be honest. Say, hey guys, I did this and screw it. You like it? Great. You don't like it? Well, that's your problem. So that's something which you need to think about. It also depends a little bit on the publication. Let's say on how you are going to portray this. If you are doing war photography, or if you're doing journalistic photography, the rules are very strict. You don't go around changing things, removing objects, and doing stuff like that. You don't. It's just not on. But if you're going to say, hey guys, this is my art, do it, but be honest enough to say that this is what you've done. There is this great quote that great photography is about depth of feeling and not depth of field. It is a great quote, but as in anything, there are ways that you can interpret this. And great digital art is also about depth of feeling. So think about that. And thank you very much, and I hope you've enjoyed this little video, and I also would like it if you add in some comments as well and send me your comments. And yes, I have a tiny little channel, subscribe to it. Thank you again.